Sit back, relax, and join William and Lee on their journey through the strange and mysterious world.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 11 of Strange and Mysterious World. Yeah, we're going to have Dick Allgire on very shortly. And I'm looking forward to this, our remote viewing guru. William and I were trying to do some remote viewing a while back. Over the last 2 weeks, I haven't really been doing anything. Definitely get back into it, but there's a couple of things I want to chat to him about.
Yeah. Jeez, I'm looking so forward to this.
Because his technique is very different to that other guy that we've been doing. That one that you sent me a link to.
Oh, David Morehouse.
Yeah, because I don't like the way he does it. The David Morehouse one, I don't like it.
I know,
It's tedious.
It's funny because that's what happened when with the remote viewing when it started in the CIA to do I'm just doing a recap for the audience. When it started in the CIA for psychic espionage, there was a guy named Ingo Swann that headed up with I think Kit Green was the head of the CIA then, and Yuri Geller was actually working at that time with them, and so was old Edgar Mitchell, I think, the astronaut. I mean, because he was heading up so Ingo Swann made the protocol, and so it was the CIA. Obviously, where the research was done was at the Stanford Research Institute with Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ, and they were like scientists. I think Russell Targ was doing some laser science. They were doing like top scientists in that field. So they headed up the whole thing at the CIA, the remote viewing, and doing all the research. And then so they got this psychic Ingo Swann, which he wrote a really cool book called Penetration, about his remote viewing experiences at the CIA. We should actually do that on the show sometime. But it's funny because he's a gay guy, and his book's called Penetration. I thought it was quite funny. When I first started reading, I thought, is this going to be like a David Boo?
Is this going to be a woke agenda book?
Is this Ingo Swann's like a romance novel, or is this like his time at the CIA remote viewing? But anyway, so Russell Targ was actually irritated with the protocol because he said it was so complicated. He said Ingo Swann made it so complicated and so like unnecessarily complicated that it was. So when Russell Targ, because I saw him, he also would do some like courses, and his was very basic. It was just like basically close your eyes. Okay, here's a target. What do you see? That's like basically that. But Ingo Swann's is like it's like military. Like write the date at the top there, write the thing here, write your name. Here, stage 1, write an ideogram, and then stage 2, start doing these things. Stage 3, stage 4, whatever. So yeah, it is quite close. But then like where old Dick, he and this other guy Dan Smith were doing remote viewing for an online channel called Farsight. Yeah, so I wanted to ask Dick about that.
Hey.
I mean, I'm letting him in, eh?
Yeah, that's fine.
There he is.
They put my guitar away.
Hey, nice.
Sorry for the mix-up. I'm glad we got together. So you're in South Africa? We are.
Yes.
We're the farthest apart you can be on this earth.
Yeah.
So Dick, my name is William. I live in Cape Town, and this is Lee. He's in Durban, which is also on the opposite sides of South Africa, actually.
Yeah.
Good to see you, William and Lee. I have never been to South Africa. I was in Tanzania and Nairobi one time when I was really young, but never been to South Africa.
Oh, okay, what were you doing there?
College. And this was the University of Utah. And swimming season, the peak training season always hit in wintertime in this hemisphere, Christmas. And everyone would go home for Christmas, but they didn't want us to stop training, and they didn't expect us to stay at the university cold and dark. So we had a coach that would take us on trips. Like the team one year went to Hawaii, or they would go to a tropical climate and swim. And somehow he got a deal with the University of Dar es Salaam, and we went to Tanzania. And so it was quite an adventure. We were a young swimming team, and the government there thought that we were CIA operatives. They really did. Like, why would these young fit men come posing as a swim team? Well, we really were a swim team. And so we trained there over Christmas break. Interesting story.
Well, at least it was a bit hotter, a bit more a warmer temperature to train as swimming. Now, I can't think of anything worse to train in the winter.
Yeah.
So just a quick background on our side. You had an interview. I can't remember the person that you had it with, but you were talking to people about remote viewing. It was live, and you did like a live thing for the audience. And you said, even the people at home.
Oh, that was a lady named Kim.
Yeah.
It was a lady named Kim. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had done this thing with an envelope. So I thought, okay, no, hold on. I'm gonna switch off here quickly. I'm gonna go and grab a pen and paper. And I went and sat in this room. And I kind of followed what you were saying. Close your eyes, look up at a little bit of a distance, see a blackboard, write down the number.
Yeah.
So I did that. And then you said, okay, open, draw, and then go, and that's it, done. And I'm like, oh, shit, what the hell was that? That was quick, man. But anyway, I had this kind of like an archy type of thing with some sort of squiggly lines at either side. So
do you have it here? You can hold it up. Let me see.
I don't. No,
okay, so describe it. So
it was like it was like an arch, and then it had these like squiggles on either side. I thought, and then
that was the Eiffel Tower.
But I didn't know that in the beginning. So in the beginning, and then I had two other things. It was like two things on either side, and then you open up this thing and you show me this Eiffel Tower. I thought, fuck, I got this thing so wrong. I was like, I'm like nowhere near. And then you said, but I still remember you said, but if you got the arch. And I looked and thought, yeah, I got the arch. And I got the buildings on either side of it.
Yeah.
So that
because I'll explain how that works. Really, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no.
The picture was the Eiffel Tower, so you would expect that you would have the overall thing, but maybe your subconscious awareness went up really close to it, right? So you only saw a part of it, which happens a lot of times.
Yeah.
So if you got the arch and the grill work, it fit that part of the picture exactly.
Yeah.
Didn't it? Yeah.
I was so excited. I can't even tell you. I was like, I ran to my wife and I said, look at this. I can't believe. And she like looks at me and she says, what the hell is that?
Well, let's have you do it again, and we'll give you some more training. I've been doing it 27 years.
Yeah.
And I still, to this day, even on a regular validation target like that, I still go, wow, how did I do that? So
no, geez, that always fascinates me, Dick, that you still get so because I've also watched a lot of your stuff over the years, and like you always say like how excited you are still when you get hits. And I mean yours is so clear. I mean that one way you did with Courtney Brown with when you were still at the far side, was it far side, and you did the Eiffel I mean, there was lots, but the one that was that sticks on my mind so much is the 9/11, and you and Daz Smith, and you guys got them, and you drew those planes like so accurately, and you drew the buildings. And I remember because you always said you got to keep a objective mind of what you're drawing, so you can't actually be like, oh, this must be the Eiffel Towers. You got to be like, this is just a plane going into buildings. But I'm thinking, while you're drawing that, I'm thinking, surely you must be thinking like that is 9/11, like that's definitely 9/11, and you drew with such precision. And then afterwards, you always like to saying that you're always saying like, geez, you get so like amazed every time you get a hit. But I'm like, geez, like it's just quite amazing how you get so accurate.
Let me tell you the experiences I had on that 9/11 target. See, Courtney Brown would say, okay, we're doing target 15, do part A. He would send an email and I'd have a blank sheet of paper and it would be target 15. Okay. So I'm working. And I said, the first session I did on that was he would go 15A, 15B, 15C. So there would be like 2 or 3 different targets. So I'm working one, and it's been 12 years, 15 years since I did that. So I'm remembering back. I knew there was a river, and I knew it was barely navigable, and there were bridges over it, and there was a big building next to it. So I go, what, where am I? Why am I here? So I go, this building is got a lot of corridors, and they put pictures up of people and events. And I go, why is the building so important? It's got a lot of corridors, and there's pictures of historical people. And then I draw that, and I draw that, and I look, and I go, wow, something flew overhead. I go, what was that? That was a missile hit the place. And I go, well, okay, a missile hit a building. And it was 9/11. Then I turned that in, and I go, I have no idea what that was. And then Courtney says, okay, do part B, 15 part B. And so I'm looking, and this huge building just goes, whoa, wow. And I went, whoa. I mean, I was right up close to it. So it can be experiential, and it still amazes me. But Lee, like, your experiences, if I describe this to you all day, you don't really have that belief that it's possible. Like, well, that's Dick saying it. He could have known about the target. He could be embellishing it. So if I just give you hold up an envelope and you prove it to yourself, that's real belief. You know, that's belief through experience. So you did that. And most people have never tried, like, okay, I have a target here in an envelope. Try closing your eyes and seeing it. Most people have never tried that.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was after that session, after your session, that I realized that there's way more to this world, or to our understanding, than what we know. And this whole consciousness thing, that we're all connected and everything's connected to this Akashic, I call it the Akashic field. Everybody else calls it something else, but this Akashic field that we all seem to be on. And then William and I, we decided, okay, we're going to start doing this remote viewing. So William, I ended up going to Saudi Arabia for a couple of weeks. And while I was in Saudi Arabia, William would send me some numbers. You know, say, okay, I've got some numbers. I need you to remote view that. I'd send them back. I'd send him different numbers from our side, and we would remote view each other's stuff. And the accuracy that came back, not all the time, but the accuracy that came back sometimes was just absolutely astounding. But I did have a problem. I'll tell you one thing that we started doing. We started following this app. It's called RV Tournament on Apple. And I started having a problem with this one because it gives you numbers, but the problem is it's almost like it's not even a 50-50 anymore. It used to be 60-40, where I would get 60% of it. Now it's dropped down to, like, I get 30, maybe 40%. And I've got a theory on that. And I don't know if this is going to be right, but the theory is the app is giving you numbers, and you're seeing these pictures. It gives you kind of two pictures to choose from. All right, after you've remote viewed, and you've got to kind of choose which one you think is the right one. But I've got a feeling, I said to Will, look, I think if somebody's sending you numbers, somebody physically has actually written down the numbers. They have gone onto the Akashic field, and they've locked in a location for that specific, from their energy. If it's an app doing it, it's not going to do it properly. You're not going to, it's just going to be
random. It's random.
No, it's just going to be a maybe not. You might get it, you might not get it.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Now I'll explain that. If the app is giving you, and we've done many experiments over the years, if you have target A and target B, and they say, well, it's target A and B both become the target. If that's in the field of the experiment or the field of the tasker, you have to be very clean on who's doing the targeteering. That is a skill and an art. And I won't work targets unless I know who that the tasker is, or the targeteer does it with the sense of ritual and the sense of intent. It's the human intent, it's the human consciousness that entangles the target ID to the target. I don't think a machine can do that. So if it's just a target A, target B, and it's the machine flips a coin, it's going to be both of them. You'll get elements of both.
Yes, that's exactly what happened to me, because I would get with that, when I did the RV tournament thing on that app, I would get like such a strong, almost like 80% sometimes of the one target, and then I'd click to see the two images, and then I would say, like, oh my gosh, and you can choose like a percentage of how much you think it's correct, that one. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 100% this image. It's 100%. I got it, everything almost. And then it says, no, that's the wrong image. It's the other one. And I'm like, yeah, but how did that work? Like I saw that image, like it's almost exactly like that. And it's saying it's the wrong image. But then also, Dick, just when me and Lee were sending images to each other, I would use a random number generator to get the number, and then I would like look at the number, and then I'd take a picture of something in the room, and then I would actually meditate on it for about a minute, and just like think of the number, and then I would think of the thing, and think of the number, and think of the thing, and think of the number. Then I would send it to Lee, just the number. And I mean that one, Lee, that you did, I took a picture of a candle in a glass. It was a candle in a glass with these orange like patterns around it. It was just a round candle, like, like in a cup so it wasn't like the normal candlestick. But when Lee got the image, he drew a candlestick. He didn't draw a candle exactly how it was in that cup, but he drew a candlestick. And then he drew all the patterns that was on the cup. And then he drew a cup separately. So he drew all three things separately. He didn't draw it into like one thing. Which, I mean, he thought it wasn't amazing. He's like, oh, I missed it. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's a candle. There's the thing on the, it's funny because whenever you're the one that's remote viewing, like, especially also with me, I don't think I'll get it until someone points out to me, but look, you got this thing, the pattern here and the flipping thing here, and you got the color over here. But like, I'm so hard on myself. I don't see it immediately. I'm like, oh my gosh, I missed it completely. Because I want to, when I remote view it, I want to see it like exactly how it is,
So it was an actual candle that you had in your possession and you were looking at it.
Correct? Yeah, so it was a glass like this, but a candle inside with all these patterns around it.
That's a good target. That's a good target because you're there with it. You're immersing your consciousness field in that. A bad target, and people try to remote view this all the time, be like a palm tree on a beach. And the person that selected the target pulled it off the internet. They don't know if it's a palm tree on a beach in Fiji, Thailand, Bahamas, Hawaii. They don't know anything about it. So that connection is not as strong. So when you give a target, you've got to know what it is, where it is, when it is, and really know about it, immerse your consciousness in it. And then what you were doing with the target ID, like randomly generating it, that's very good. The fact that you were repeating it over and over again and making the association saying, A1, B2, C3, D4 is this candlestick, looking at the candlestick, say the thing, and you intuitively got that right. So that sense of ritual and that repetitive, that's good tasking. So many people in the remote viewing world think you can just go, oh, take some picture they find off the internet. It doesn't make for a good target.
So. Yeah, sure. So also, Dick, just carrying on with that, because I mean, I used to watch you like religiously when you at Farsight, you and Al Daz.
Yeah,
unfortunate did you guys move, or maybe it was fortunate because then you went on the crypto viewing, and I love that, and now you're at the future forecasting. But then I still carry on watching old Farsight with that new group that he has there. But like they would do a target like Jeffrey Epstein, for example. And then all of the viewers came back and they said that Jeffrey Epstein died alone. So that was and I was thinking, okay, well that's because we all wanted the conspiracy theory and everything, and it was quite a boring target thing because it was like, oh, nothing happened with Jeffrey Epstein. But then Courtney Brown he didn't seem like he was happy with that. So he made them redo the target, and then they all came back with the conspiracy theory. Well, I mean, like maybe it's the truth, but I'm just calling it a conspiracy theory now because it's that elaborate thing that everybody thought like, oh no, he was involved in the island and the whole pedophile ring and whatever. So then all the viewers came back with that that target of like, oh, he was killed and there was a CIA agent in the cell and blah 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 blah. And I was like so confused because I'm thinking, but wait a second, you guys did this like last time and it came back that he died alone. Now all of a sudden it's totally changed. Like, why is that happening?
Well, I don't criticize anybody else's remote viewing work. And the last thing I will ever do is hold up somebody else's work and say, well, that was a mistake. That was bad. Because remote viewing is not 100%. Anybody can have a great day or a bad day. So I don't ever hold anybody else's work up to as a failure. And I don't criticize others' work. So I don't really know what the tasking was on that. I had a couple targets with Courtney where I felt, and I love Courtney. He's a dear friend, and I talk to him pretty regularly. We had a couple Farsight targets where I felt he had an assumption, a bias going in. One of them was Adolf Hitler, which is a very controversial target. He tasked us with that. And Courtney's thesis in tasking it was that Hitler didn't kill himself, but the SS killed him to save the embarrassment of him being captured. They made it look heroic. And I did the session. I never knew it was Adolf Hitler, but I knew somebody was killed, but it was like play acting. There was somebody acting a part, but they were really killed. And then I saw this old man that died. He was given a deal and he died, an old man of natural causes. So Courtney didn't want to publish that, so I published it on my own. So I felt in that case he had a bias and an agenda going in. And then another one was the Tunguska. And I've remote viewed that twice in 25 years. And both times I saw a rock hitting the atmosphere. It was just a rock. And Courtney so wanted it to be an alien spaceship. And he kept telling me, there's more, remote viewed again. I said, Courtney, I'm done. I saw this rock hit the atmosphere. And he goes, no, I think you're missing something. And he asked me to do it again. And I refused. I said, no, I'm done. And now that you've talked to me about it, I'm really not going to do it, because you got to be under strict blind protocols.
Yeah. Yes, I remember that one. Sorry to interrupt you there, man. I remember that one, but then Daz came back and he said that because Daz also did the target, and his was, he actually saw something going in and out of a dimension or something, and it seemed to be like an alien thing. And then that's also what I started thinking, like, okay, well, maybe when Courtney puts the target out, he influences, like, how I was meditating on the candle and the number. I thought maybe because he's got like a certain like I wouldn't want to say an agenda, like not an agenda, but like, you know what I mean? Like he wants he wants it to be what he thinks it is. That's influencing when he puts the target out. He's putting something on there that's influencing it. Because you came back with a rock and Dennis came back with the alien.
Well,
UFO.
It's really slippery stuff, because you can make up a target. You can make something up out of whole cloth. You can totally make up a whole scenario in your own mind and test that out in remote view. I did that once. I did an experiment where I made a place that didn't exist. I made a dam in a freshwater lake, a reservoir, in a little town, and I had like where the people fished and rented sailboats and things. I gave that out as a target, and people got valid data on it. It's called a mask. It's not easy to do. It takes a lot of mental horsepower, and you've got to really reinforce it over and over and over again. Have you guys ever heard of the book Conjuring Up Philip? This would be from the 1970s. It was these psychic researchers, and what they did was they made up a person who was an English nobleman who had a loveless marriage, and what was the story? He had a lover, and then they were discovered, and he allowed the lover to be killed. But there was this whole soap opera story that was totally made up. But they made this person up in consciousness, and they would have seances, and the table would lift and they'd hear knocking, and they were communicating with him. So they created an entity with their own consciousness agreement. And they did a book and a film about it. You can look it up for everybody listening to us. If you look up Conjuring Up Philip, there's video of some of the seances, and there was a book about that. But that's an experiment of can you create something in consciousness Now, this is akin to magic, and this is way advanced level remote viewing stuff. This gets to the way fringe edges of spookiness. So,
Yeah, I think we call it tulpas, thought forms, where you can actually create a form from thought.
yes.
Yeah, 100%. I agree
Yep.
with that.
Yep.
There was something else I wanted to ask you as well with regards to the training. Your training is a little bit different. Well, actually, I prefer your training because I tried to do, I think it was David Morehouse's training with regards to remote. I couldn't do it. You get the numbers and you got to write down on a piece of paper like this and that, and then what are you smelling? And I'm thinking, Jesus, nah, I couldn't do that because the way you did your one and the first one of the Eiffel Tower, the quick thing that for me worked. That worked actually quite well.
Well, I would caution you. First of all, David Morehouse, I have tremendous respect for him. I've never met him personally, but I know some of his students. One of his students was Hitomi Akamatsu, who I worked with. David Morehouse was responsible in large part for revealing the U.S. military remote viewing program. He wrote a book and he paid dearly for that. He lost his retirement for many years and then just got it back. So tremendous respect for David Morehouse. His form of remote viewing is, well, all remote viewing has a rigid structure. And the purpose of that, Lee, is to keep your conscious mind occupied, because your conscious mind is going to want to foul, it's going to butt in and tell you. So you give it tasks to do. What I did on that radio show where I said, okay, just close your eyes and look on Blackboard and see it. That's the foundation of the remote viewing method that I was trained in. But make no mistake, the next thing you do is you write the target ID, create a spontaneous ideogram, expend the energy from writing the target ID to a little scribble, and then you touch that and you get low-level sensory data. So it is going for, is it man-made? Is it moving or is it rest? How does it feel? Is it soft or hard? So there is a remote viewing session requires like a Japanese tea ceremony. You need to keep your conscious mind doing something, so that you can query and in those brief little instants have that experience. The method that I use begins in an alert state where you're in beta consciousness. Like right now, we're communicating and we're firing on all cylinders. We're fully conscious. We're fully alert. And in that state, your remote viewing signal line access is about like just momentary. We get to a point about 40 minutes in the session where you get to from beta, totally conscious, to more alpha brainwaves, like daydreaming, like, oh, you're thinking more about the target than what you're doing. And then at the end of the session, actually put down the pen and paper, and you would like this. You do a little breathing exercise, a visualization thing, and you kick back and you go to what David Morehouse calls ERV, extended remote viewing, experiential remote viewing. So it's a process of getting yourself from beta, super aware consciousness, to daydreamy, to step-by-step getting to the target, to where eventually what you want to do is have this little dream where you're seeing it. And it's brilliant. It's really interesting. I'll have to show you guys some of the training.
Yeah, that's because the only way I've been doing it is exactly how you did it in that show. They're looking up the numbers, checking the numbers, getting them, and then trying to get to that field. And then I'd write up what I'm seeing. And it seemed to work a lot, actually. I will.
It's a natural skill. It's a natural skill. We can all do it.
Yeah. Which is actually, that just changed me completely, 100%.
Well, that's a good story. I mean, I'm so happy that I did that. And I'm doing a show with that lady. I'll tell her that story, that you experienced that based on our show.
But that just proved to me that everything else out there, that Akashic field is real. I can't even explain to you how I now know that that Akashic field or the dream world or whatever you want to call it, whatever world it is.
I'll tell you how I describe it. I don't describe it as the Akashic field, although we may just be giving it different names.
Yeah.
I feel that consciousness is a dimension. So there's this dimension of consciousness, and we are part of that consciousness. We're individual little droplets of that, and we're connected to it. In order to have this experience as human beings in this body that was created by DNA, our consciousness, our soul is connected to that. You need a filter or a buffer. You can't have cosmic consciousness and have this experience. So our brain is a filter that filters us down to the here and now. So we have stereoscopic eyes, parabolic antennas, sense of our 5 physical senses, smell, taste, feel, so that we can have this experience. But part of your being is part of that consciousness. And it's been trying to talk to you your whole life. Everybody's had an experience where you knew something you shouldn't know, where you thought of an old friend you haven't talked to in 10 years, and then they call you. The mother who knows their child is in trouble and wakes up in the middle of the night. So remote viewing is a structured method to allow that communication between your conscious mind and that greater self that you have that is in that conscious, what you call the Akashic record, which I say is the consciousness field of.
Yeah, it's the same, 100%.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something else, and thank you. Actually, I'm going to tell you this now to your face. Thank you very much for opening my mind and for showing me the truth on that. I promise you that has been, I can't even tell you how much you've changed my life on that.
Well, that's touching, because I'm not doing this for bullshit. I'm doing this because it's really interesting. And if it affects somebody's life that way, that really makes me feel good. That's cool. I'm so glad to hear that.
No, but the thing is, my whole outlook is different now on the world.
We'll trade stories here. How that made you feel. I did a session one time that I was working as a newscaster, and it was the weekend news, and it was afternoon. It was 3 hours before the newscast, and not much going on. I snuck off into an office that was closed. I took a target ID. And the target ID was a beaconing target. And I did this advanced method where I put my thumbs against my eyes slightly, and I lean on the desk, and I do this breathing thing and come to a stop. And I was a student remote viewer at that time. And this flickering movie started, like black and white, of a man in an overcoat walking through what looked like a store. Like there were suits, and he looked at some men's shirts. It was like I was a surveillance camera looking down at this guy, and he just walked through and touched the suits and looked, went by a rack of clothes, and then walked away. And it lasted maybe 6 to 8 seconds. And I came to and I went, wow, what was that? That was a weird little experience. I drew it, and I said, I wonder if, I've never had an experience like that. That was really, it's like I could see that. And so I got the feedback, and the feedback was the person who cued the target said, I was at a men's clothing store, a PX in Germany, on the second floor, men's clothing department. I was walking through looking at the clothes. And I went, oh my God. My skin, what we call in Hawaii, chicken skin.
Yeah, goosebumps.
Hair on the back of my neck. I was like, oh my God. And I called my teacher, Glenn Wheaton. I said, I saw it. He said, calm down. And I went, oh my God, everything is recorded. Everything we do, everything we think, every little action still is resonating in some dimension where people can see it and feel the whole thing. And that's the life-changing thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Becoming a better person, not doing anything bad because you knew that.
Yeah. But there's a couple of things. I was reading this book, The Man Who Invented Gravity and the Kid Who Invented TV. And I realized, because Will's obviously going to go and do a bit of an interview with the author, but The kid that invented TV was Farnsworth. And I realized all these inventors and all these, these guys that are coming up with these ideas are actually getting the ideas from the field, or this dimension that we're going to, where everything exists, everything from past, future, and present exists on this dimension. And this is where they're getting the information from. So I just thought this is absolutely fantastic. And just a quick story from our side before we move on a little bit. After this event from your event that I had, I start taking notice of certain things. And I remember that one day I was standing in my kitchen, I was helping my wife with the dishes. And we were expecting a friend to come around for dinner. And it was weird. I was washing the dishes, and I stopped and I said, Greg's at the gate. The dogs didn't bark, because they normally do when somebody comes around to the gate. The dogs didn't bark. No, I just said, Greg's at the gate. And she says, he hasn't phoned or anything. So I went out and I saw him. He grabbed his phone and he was busy dialing for us to let him know that he was there. And I'd seen him at the gate before we actually knew he was at the gate. So and those little things are coming in, they're creeping in. I'm starting to see those things, and that's absolutely fascinating.
Well, we got to give you a scholarship to our next class. I'll be in touch with you about that. You should do it. It's you should keep a journal of everything, all the little random thoughts that you have in a day. Like, you'll just think like, I wonder if the blah, blah, blah. Just write that down and you'll see some of them coming true. Like for me, I was at work and I was renting a parking space at the place where the TV station was. So they didn't have enough parking. I was driving up. So I was thinking, I was wondering what would happen if I lost my parking space. And I got to my desk and there was a note saying, yeah, you're going to lose your parking space. We decided, yeah, keep a journal. Keep a journal of all the little thoughts that you have. And take note of them. You'll be surprised.
No, I definitely will.
Yeah. But Dick, talking about, I mean, what I got into remote viewing. I mean, I read old David Morehouse's book actually, and that's what got to remote viewing. So just talking about psychic experiences, was also like totally blew my mind. Is that I started meditating, and I was meditating every single morning, every single evening until so my body started swaying quite a lot while I was meditating. And then I started getting visions of like what was happening. And well, it started off like there's a whole sequence of events that happened that when I realized that this was happening, but I won't go into now because then you'll be here for another half an hour. But it was so exciting that I would sit in my meditation and I would say, what am I going to see tomorrow? And I would get an image of something, and then the next day it would be so exciting because it would happen every single time. I would be like just waiting to see this thing that I'd seen in my meditation the day before, and then I would see that thing, and it would carry on like day after day. It was so exciting seeing these things, but then it got a and that's when I started realizing, like Lee said, that our brains are, and like what you said, we are receiving consciousness, because I always thought that the brain generated consciousness, like we generated our experience or whatever. But then I started realizing, we're actually receiving this, and exactly like you said, it's like a filter, so we don't receive too much. We only receive like otherwise we would probably get psychosis or something. But I mean, that's why like how yogis, when they meditate or whatever, they open up the filter so they can receive more. And then I thought, but with your brain, like people get brain damage, then they actually can't think and they can't do this. And then I started thinking, that must be generated in the brain. But then I thought, well, it's actually your filter's getting damaged, so you're not actually receiving anymore. And that's what the brain damage is. It's like something in your receiver is broken, so that you're not receiving the consciousness anymore. And it would get to a state like I would have to shoot somewhere in another town or whatever, and I would be booking my accommodation online, but I would be taking like 15 minutes. I was sorry. The night before, I would meditate. I said, "What I'm going to see tomorrow?" And I would see I saw this like fountain with all and it was all these mosaic patterns of the different colors on this fountain. Then I would start looking for my accommodation for where I'm going that night for my shoot the next day. So for 15 minutes, I'm like indecisive. I'm like, no, that place doesn't look nice. I'll go to this place. Oh, I can't afford that. Maybe this thing. And like for 15 minutes, I eventually arrive on one, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll go to that place. So I drive there that night, and I get there, And then as I walk out of the parking lot, there's the fountain that I've seen in my meditation the day before with all the mosaic patterns and everything. And I'm like, and then I realized, like, what, like, do I have any free will in my life? Like that whole thing of sitting there for 15 minutes trying to like argue with myself, what am I going to go? Like, what was the point of that? Because I was going to go to that place anyway. I was going to arrive there anyway. So what was the whole deal of me going through all of this, like all that indecisiveness and like, geez, like, did I really have a choice at the end of the day? Because I was already going to go there. Like, so it really, like, it started really
Messing with your mind.
I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't think we have
Well,
actually free will.
yeah, you did what you needed to do. You chose the right path. Here's a good story. This was before I was exposed to remote viewing. I was not a young man, but a lot younger than I am today, and single, bachelor. And I met a guy that asked me to be the best man at his wedding. And I said, okay. He's a U.S. Marine officer. And I got to know him from being on TV, but he said, be the best man at my wedding. I said, okay. And so the wedding came on a Sunday. It was Super Bowl Sunday. I leave the Super Bowl, put a tuxedo on. And I went there, and he married this beautiful Korean woman. And the woman's sister was the maid of honor. And I was standing there being the best man. So here he is in his Marine dress blues next to the bride. And then the maid of honor over there. And I looked over and I had this vision. I saw myself marrying her. And I went, I'm going to marry her. And no, I'm not. But I had this vision and it came true.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's an awesome story. That's so cool. So you were directed on a certain path. But I think with William and your one, maybe just to clarify something, whether this is true or not, there's different dimensions and there's different universe or different earths, if you want to call it like that. Maybe, perhaps. And you've chosen, I mean, you could have chosen something else and gone somewhere else and you wouldn't have seen that. But that might have, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
I've heard of that and I've never really considered. Okay. Remote viewers have used that as an excuse for missing targets. They say, okay, we're going to see a future event. And they go, well, the earthquake is going to hit. This is going to happen. Then it doesn't happen. And they say, well, it did happen, but it happened on a different timeline in the universe that branched off. And I always call bullshit on that. I say, no, your job as a remote viewer is to remote view this here. So there may be other universes and there may be other timelines, but I'm not competent to speak on that. I try to just live my life in this one and remote view in this one. So, but I will tell you, you want to hear, speaking of Farnsworth and the television, it's my understanding by some conversations that I've had because of my remote viewing is that we were created. This earth was created and we were put here. And there are beings with technology and they allow the technology out little by little to further the experiment that is this. So it's not just some clever, and we've done remote viewing on that it's not just some clever human thinks like, wow, I can make electronic waves fly through the air to light up a cathode ray tube. It's doled out little by little from a higher intelligence. That's my understanding.
I believe that too.
That's fascinating you say, because in that book of Farnsworth, he actually figures out fusion energy. But then
that was
he
towards the end.
He stops it because he says that the world's not
ready for it.
Well, his wife said that because like in the book, his wife saw him doing it and then he shut it off and then he destroyed everything. And when he died, she came on and said, no, he did. That night he got it, but the world wasn't ready for it. So he didn't want to release it or something like that.
This world is so much more interesting than most people realize. Yeah. There's a lot more going on. Most people just live their lives in a day-to-day trying to put food on the table and afford rent. Most people would find this conversation not that interesting. Like these guys are crazy. There's only very few kindred people that can have a discussion like this. Like it's so nice to meet you guys and like we're right into it. like
Yeah.
right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was
I also-
sorry, Will, there was one remote viewing session that you did that was actually quite sad. I'm trying to remember the lady's name. It was a World War II lady that you did.
Maria
Orsic.
Orsic.
Yeah. Oh man, that was.
That doesn't, that may or may not be true. We don't know how she died.
No, but the
But I
funny
had
thing is, I
really
had an
good-
idea when you were talking about it. I was actually seeing it in my mind, and I could see it. It was almost like a movie when you were talking about it and you were doing the session.
When the Russians got her.
Yes, and I could
the end.
actually see everything. When you were talking about it, I could see, it was like I closed my eyes and I could see this whole, it was like almost like I was standing in the corner and I could see everything happening as you were
Me
talking.
too.
And I just
Me
thought,
too.
oh my God, this
Yeah.
is so sad. I actually felt so bad after that one, I'll be honest. But you did a really good one there. That was really good.
For those that haven't, that session's on YouTube. You can see if you go to, what's my YouTube channel? Future Forecasting Group is the YouTube channel, Future Forecasting Group. And we published that about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Maria Orsic,
Yeah.
ORSIC.
SIC.
I didn't really know much about her before the remote viewing, but my experience on that was I was doing the remote viewing and I got like old stuff, like smell of hay, smell of cow manure, old carts that creaked, that they bring hay in and produce, cobblestone streets, but then they had cars that went old style cars. And then I saw old buildings, and then suddenly I saw this woman sitting at a table, and that got my interest. I said, God, this woman, and I looked at her some more and I went, man, she's really spiritual. She's got the power. She just glowed with this psychic energy. And I knew she was somehow interested in UFOs. I don't know if she'd seen one, but she had some communication with them. And I knew her hair was really long, and she thought her hair was, she had like an antenna. And I knew she worked with the Germans. I'm kind of reliving this now. And then I thought, what happened to her? And then that movie played of like, there were soldiers there and there were soldiers there, and she didn't know which way to go. And she had to get away. And so she made her face dirty with charcoal and somebody was dead, and she took her coat and the hat. And then the Russians got her and they took her down an alley. And I kind of witnessed that. Yeah, I got emotional when I did the session. Now, after I did the session, I looked up the history of Maria Orsic, and that's not in the history. She just disappeared. Some think that she was beamed up to some other planet or something, but I didn't get that. I'll tell you one of my first experiences with that, when I was training as a remote viewer, and my teacher, Glenn Wheaton, U.S. Army Special Forces, did it for the military and trained me for 20 years free, never charged anything. And he gave us a target once, and it's totally blind. And I did it. I said, oh, it's out in the woods. I get trees, bushes, and there's a man, and he's attacking a woman, and she's fighting back. And I go, oh, this was really bad. And I go, he buried her under some brush and then ran off. And I turned that session in, and it was an active target, so we were still blind to it. And my teacher brought me, said, Dick, come here, I need to talk to you. And he handed me the envelope because go in the other room and look at this. You deserve it. You earned it. And he closed the door, and I was alone. I opened the envelope, and there's a picture of a girl, and she was a missing woman. And I looked at that and I started crying because I had seen what the guy did to her. We don't do a lot of those. Those are hard to do. But yeah, there's it's an emotional thing.
There was something that happened about 8 months ago. It was on TV. There was a kid that went missing in Switzerland. I think it was about 8 months ago. young child, man. I think he was about 3 or 4. Police had got involved. And as they were talking about it, I had this image in my mind. It was weird. Mountains, a river, and trees.
Oh.
And I sent him a message. It was on Facebook. I think it was a whole big thing. And I said, go and have a look. If there's a river somewhere and there's trees and there's a mountain, there's a massive rock nearby. Go and have a look to see if he's not near there. But obviously no one ever responded. But it was just an image. As soon as they were talking about it, I had this image in my mind of this picture. There was a picture that came into my mind. So whether or not they ever found him or not, I don't know. But it was weird. But I get that a lot. When somebody says something
Well,
to me,
you should be careful about that, because the police will come to your door and start.
no, they can ask me.
It was in Switzerland, right?
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
in it.
So
You
I'm in
could
South
prove you
Africa.
were there. Okay.
Yeah.
But that is, I'm not joking. You got to be careful on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they'll say, how do you know that? Like, you know something that we didn't release to the public. Like, we're looking at this rock,
Yeah.
and they'll start investigating you.
No, well, that's
Yes.
cool. I mean, they can. I don't mind. I'm like hundreds of thousands of miles away.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
How did you guys get interested in all this and involved in all this?
Well, I actually, look, my family, my mom, she's been involved with spiritualism and all sorts of stuff since she was young. And she had the whole UFO experience as well. And I kind of probably followed suit on her side.
So you've never done any training or tried this before that I did that radio show? And
No,
then
that was when you did that radio show. Because William actually said to me, "Hey, we must do a podcast on remote viewing." And I thought, "Hey, okay, cool."
Well, we should definitely get you some training. I'll send you the little videotape.
Okay.
But I'll warn you that it is very intensive. Like, there's a lot to learn and a lot. You don't just sit down, close your eyes, and do it. It's very structured. It's as structured as what David Morehouse does.
Okay.
But it's very logical. The David Morehouse was part of one remote viewing unit, which was at Fort Meade, and the style I learned was from U.S. Army Special Forces intelligence. Have you heard the story about how my teacher got started? This is a good story.
Mm-mm.
He was a high-speed Morse intercept operator at the Army Security Agency field station in Augsburg, Germany. There was an Army Security Agency, which was precursor to the NSA, National Security Agency. They listened to every form of electronic communication as military spies. So my teacher, this was in the 70s, was there in Germany, and he was listening to Morse code. So he'd go to a little booth with low lights, and they'd have a Morse, and he'd put on a headset like this, and he'd listen to listen to Morse code, and he'd type it out. And he was doing that from like 11 at night till 7 in the morning. And he'd just sit there all night and listen to Morse code and type it out from what the Russians were sending. So one day it was Oktoberfest in Germany, right? And he was drinking good beer and eating good food and having a good old time at Oktoberfest. He had to be to work at 11 at night and copy Morse code. And he went home to go to sleep, but his roommate was making noise and he didn't sleep. So he went to work after not sleeping. And here he is in his little booth, and they said, that's the tank battalion in Vladivostok. Everything they say to Moscow, you copy that. So here he is, a little hungover, maybe still drunk, his headphones on, and he could dim the lights, and he's in this little cubicle. And the guy in Vladivostok, Russia sent a message to Vladivostok, and Glenn copied it. And the Vladivostok guy said, I didn't copy, send again. And Glenn's going, God, that guy's an idiot. He doesn't know how to copy Morse code. So they send it again. And he's listening to it, but not listening to it. He's already copied, like, I got that one. And he started to fall asleep. He got into that little, when you're listening to the TV and you kind of go out, he went out. And as he went out, he saw the Russian keying the Morse code thing. He saw the guy in his uniform, and he had this little dream, and he saw him. And as he's watching him, listening to the Morse code, his supervisor came and hit him. Wake the F up. He go, because you can't fall asleep in the military. And Glenn's, oh, he said, what are you doing? He said, I saw the Russian. His supervisor said, say that again, you know. He said, I saw the Russian. He realized I shouldn't have said that. I'm in trouble. He said, you saw the Russian, huh? Give me your badge. You're relieved. I want you to report over there. He goes, oh man, I am in deep, deep trouble. So they sent him for 2 days of psychological review, and they're asking him all these questions like, you ever this and what this? And you're doing the, and he thinks, man, I'm in trouble. What the hell have I gotten into? And they ended the 2 days of psychological review. They gave him a paper, said, you've had this experience, you will not talk about this, you will not discuss this, you will not disclose this on pain of like 10 years in prison and blah, 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 sign your name. So they were looking for people who had had this experience because it had happened to Morse code operators. Listening to Morse code puts your brainwave in that little asleep place, and people with the skill, it'll kick off a remote viewing. So he went back to work and they said, no, you can't go in there. He said, wait, I've been cleared. And they said, no, you're supposed to go down that hall. And they said, report to this guy. Here's the key code on the door. And they said, all right, there are Russian spies in West Germany, France, somewhere outside of the Iron Curtain, and they get radio traffic every Sunday night at 10 o'clock. There's a radio broadcast. You listen to that, go into that state and draw the spy. And that was how remote viewing started in special forces in that arm of Intel.
That's awesome.
That's a good story.
That's a very good story.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
now you said you were listening to, I remember one of your podcasts you were having, when somebody asked you about your binaural beats, if we can say, you said you were listening to something called Atlantean sounds or Atlantean.
Yep.
But I don't have that anymore, I think. But you did say that you should listen to perhaps natural things like natural things of the sea and,
What I do is if you go to YouTube and type in theta tones for theta, the THETA. I don't know how this works. I'm not a brainwave or, induction of consciousness by tones expert. I think that the U.S. military was using some tones, some form of augmentation. We know about the Monroe hemisync. Joe McMoneagle used that. My teacher said they didn't use that, but you want something that puts you in that just before you go to sleep state. And you can find things on the internet that YouTube, just type in theta tones.
Mm-hmm.
Theta.
Yeah, sure, because also, Dick, I remember the one interview you said that you were speaking to a friend of yours and they had discovered some kind of tones that would put you into such a state of consciousness that it was next level. But when you were speaking to him, he just put his fingers in his ears and he was like, no. He didn't want to, because he didn't want to tell you what it was because it was so top secret.
Okay, that's close to the story. My instructor, Glenn Wheaton, I asked him, okay, after you had that experience where you heard the Morse code and you saw it, and then they went and trained you to be a remote viewer, how long was it before you could have experiential, like you're there seeing it? And he goes, a couple days. A couple days. I've been doing this for like 8 years, And he said, well, you're doing it, like you're plowing a field with a teaspoon and you could plow it with a tractor. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I can't. If I told you more, I'd get in trouble and you'd get in trouble. So I do think that there are agencies that have augmentation, and I would ask him about that we'd be drinking wine or scotch. Hey, what about that? And he'd go, and he'd change the subject. He will not discuss it.
So crazy. And then also just with your technique as well, Dick, I remember you would, I don't know which video I was watching, but you would go and lie on your bed. And well, remember you said the edging one, which I'd love to I'd love to learn how to do that. But then your other technique is you lie on the bed and you put on, I think you put on your theta tracks or whatever, and then you actually, it's almost like Monroe's way of doing outer body experience, like going slip. Like, can you explain that?
It's as I explained, the if we're talking like this, and I told you, I don't know if you have the same candy bars in South Africa, but like, what's the taste of a banana? Or what's the taste of a chocolate sundae? Or malted milk? Or a taste of a McDonald's cheeseburger? You can remember it, but only for an instant. In an alert state, your contact with the signal line is very fleeting because your conscious mind overrides it. I think if you just sit down and try to have a little nap, your imagination's going to fly off and you're going to get more imaginary stuff than remote viewing signal line, unless you're a very disciplined person. So what the methodology does is you're answering very basic questions like, is this man-made or natural? What is it? Do you see land, or do you see a person, or do you see a structure? Very simplistic things. And it's the immediate thought that pops into your head, the first 1 second thing. So you do that, and you increase your target aperture. So you get more and more target contact so that you've established that foothold on the target. And usually I don't go to that state where I'm in the bed with the headphones on and the theta tones until someone has, without front loading, they'll tell me, why don't you continue? Why don't you do some more work? And that's a cue to me that, okay, I'm on. So I'm going to go. They don't say anything more than that, than like, that's interesting. Can you do more? Like, take it a little further. And with that foothold on the target, then I go to the place near sleep and wake. And sometimes I monitor myself. In the method I was using, you would have a monitor who's also blind to the target. Like, I'll do my paper session. Here's one I just did last night. Oh, I shouldn't show that. But anyway, they'll look through it and they'll say, oh, you talked about a structure, you saw this place, you saw this water, and you saw a person. Okay, so they're looking at your thing, and you go into the theta tones, and then when they can sense that you're in that deep consciousness state, they'll say the target ID. They'll just go A1, B2, C3, D4. And you'll know, oh, I got a job too. You can come up. And you want to be at what we call an inclined orbit at theta, where you're almost asleep. And then the monitor asks you something, and they go, you saw some water. Go look at the water. And then you're, okay, I see it. It's a pool. So they're giving you a little command. It brings you up in your awareness, and then you go back down. What I do sometimes solo is I will review my own data, and I'll put the theta track on a audio editing program, and then I'll say myself into the microphone. I'll go target A1, B2, C3, D4. Okay, heard that. No, I'll wait 3 minutes worth of tones, and they'll say, tell me about the person that you saw. You drew a person with long hair, and I'll go, oh, okay. And then I have this elaborate system. I'll keep my iPhone on my chest, or an audio recorder, and I'll be there, and like half the time I'm like, and then I'll go, oh, there's a man, and he's doing that, he's running. And I'll record that, and then I put the audio track on, I look, and I see me snoring, me breathing, then voice, and I'll listen to the voice like, oh, I said a man, and it'll cue my memory, and then I'll draw it. So
that's pretty cool.
It's just really interesting. It's just like way fun, way fun. But it's also daunting. I mean, like we began talking about how amazed we are every time we do it. And I'm still like, they give me a target and I have to sit here and I have to go do a report on it next Thursday. And all I have is a target ID and a blank stack of paper. I go, how am I going to do that? Yeah, I can't do that. And then I just do it step by step. I see something, I draw it. Sometimes it's wrong and sometimes it's right. Some days you get like Maria Orsic and some of those other ones. I don't do that every time. Like some of the ones you see for Farsight, for Courtney, I would do 2 projects a year, maybe 3. So that was like peak. We'd work for a month and then I wouldn't remote view for 3 months. Like after that, I'd just be exhausted. I'd be like, okay, I did it. I don't want to do it again. It's like too much work.
But in the beginning, how many times, how were you practicing, like every night? Were you practicing? Because I mean, it sounds like
when Glenn was teaching me, I did at least 3 or 4 targets a week. There was a time when I was doing a target almost every day. I was obsessive about it. I would work a target like every other day. And now I do at least twice a week, at least.
That's
And
years.
And do you practice a meditation? Do you find meditations actually helps?
I do meditate. I meditate. It's a cool down. So what I do is I take a target ID. Do I have one? This is my desk where I remote view. I get my desk clean. I put a clean stack of paper. I put the target ID on next to it. I get a pen. I get my headset. Okay, I'm going to remote view. I have a lamp back there that I put a red shirt over it, so I have a red glow in the room. I make it real quiet. I put on like white noise. So I'm in this little cocoon of silence. So I sit here, have the target ID there. I mean, actually, prior to that, I've eaten a good meal an hour before. I eat some chocolate, drink some tea, and then I sit down and I meditate for about 15 minutes. And when I get to the point where, you meditate and you lose where you are, like you lose your mantra, and I go, oh, I've got a remote view. Oh, I'm here to remote view. And I look at the target ID and I pick up my pen and I go from there. So it's the cool down. When you remote view, you have to have what we call a null moment. When you address that target ID, you have no expectations. Where you first look, you're open to anything. You have no preconception. And very often, especially for crypto viewing, I'll be thinking, is this a historical target? Is this a future target? Is this an economic target? Is this and all that's going through my mind. You got to get that out. So meditation's a good way to do that. So you just erase all your expectations and it's just you and the target ID and you accept whatever you get. That's the most important thing in remote viewing, is to accept what you get through the execution of the methodology.
Okay. The last question from our side, Dick, quickly. Have you heard of a project called Kona Blue?
I have.
So there was
refresh my mind. I've heard about it, and it's slipping my mind what it was. It's something really interesting, quantum computer or consciousness.
Yes. Yeah, there's a whole span of stuff. But that Aussie reporter, the one that Fox News got rid of, what was his name?
Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, Carlson.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, but they mentioned remote viewing as part of what was one of the projects, which means they obviously have still been going on it. Because remember, there was some time back where they said, oh no, they only had spent 20 million and then they stopped and then that was it.
Yeah. So no, they've been using it. They've still been doing it.
Yeah. But I think everybody around the world's doing it, dude. I think it's Russia, China. I think everybody's doing it. I don't think it's just the Americans.
I've heard, well, the woman I worked with from Japan, Hitomi Akamatsu, who was a student of David Morehouse and then came and studied with Hawaii Remote Viewers Guild. She worked with some Russians and she said they scared the hell out of her. She said they were so good, they were spooky scary. My teacher told me a few years ago that last he heard, the people that he knew from his days, they say they're still using it. And I'm aware of some remote viewers in Europe that work for a supranational, above nation state organization that uses remote viewers. So
Definitely something to it. Definitely something to it, without a doubt.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it was released into the civilian world in kind of a way that it wouldn't do too much harm. It was kind of tied at the hip with ufology, and it was people were given kind of a watered down version where they said, "Oh, you don't really see anything. Like you can't close your eyes. Don't close your eyes and see it. Like what you did with the Eiffel Tower, you close your eyes and you saw that arch and you saw the grill work. They would say, no, that's your imagination. You can't do that." So I believe a watered down version of remote viewing was given, and it was we spent 20 million on it. It kind of worked, but it didn't work that good, and we abandoned it. And we don't use it anymore. There's nothing to it. That was a cover story. That was
because they did it for 20 years. I mean, you don't do something for 20 years and then decide, oh no, it doesn't work. You know, that's after like year 2.
Well,
you're talking about the CIA.
I've done. I don't want to brag or sound, but I've done work that is intelligence grade. I mean, there's something to some of the work that I've published, and it's done it's under strict scientific protocol and double blind. So, I mean, if I successfully remote viewed Maria Orsic, then there is something to that. There's some value in that. It's been used throughout history, just under different names.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But sorry, just 2 very minor questions from me. The chocolate, you mentioned chocolate. Why do you eat the chocolate for? Is it to ground you?
No, to give me energy, because remote viewing takes it eats up all your sugar. It's like your mental processing that goes on. I'm told that when you remote view, you create new neural pathways. You get like new synapses, and there's so much stuff firing in your brain. My teacher, when we used to have class at Hawaii Remote Viewers Guild, we would have fruit and treats at class. We'd get a lecture, and then we'd eat treats, and then we'd work a session. So yeah, you need blood sugar. You need energy. You want to sit down and you want to be rested. You want to have no concerns about anything. You don't want to be hungry. You don't want to be thirsty. You don't want somebody smoking a cigar in the next room. You don't want somebody cooking, fish next door. You don't want a lawnmower or a leaf blower. You want quiet, comfort, just your own little cocoon of quietness. So yeah, I eat chocolate for energy.
Okay, and then also in your training, how long were you doing it for until you thought, okay, I've got this now?
Still busy.
I would go for like 3 months sometimes, and I'd still feel like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, the protocol that I taught on that radio show, where you take the target ID, write it, and look, that's called visual ideogram. That's the first page. That's like the first moment, the first 2 minutes of a remote viewing session. When I trained, I did just that for a few months. And then we progressed to where you would write the target ID and make a little scribble. And then you'd go simplex or complex, hard, soft, medium, wet, airy, man-made, natural, static, or dynamic. And we would just probe for that. I went a couple months just doing that. It's like, hey, when's the next thing? And it was maybe 4 months to where I really had a good session, where I went, oh, okay, that was remote viewing. I remember the target. It was, I was in class and I was going, look, I said, I see people going like sitting side by side, and they went down and around. And they went, whap, whap, whap. These people moving like this. And I drew that, and the target was a roller coaster. My teacher he just handed me the picture and shook my hand. He goes, you got your eyes. And it took me months to get there. And then I thought, oh, I'm a remote viewer. I've got it. And I'm going to call target every time. So next time I sit down to do the target and I go, okay, I'm a remote viewer now. Here we go. Target ID did. And I go, da, da, da. Look, I go, yeah, I know just what it is. I did it. Hand it in. It's like totally wrong. Everything, not even close. Really. I go, oh, shit. So it's hard. I've had so many failed remote viewing sessions. There was one time in 1998, 99 where I had maybe 6 weeks. I was total failure. I mean, there was one time I did a session, I did it, I got the feedback and I wanted to cry. I just thought, I did this before and I can't do it now. It was like you could fly and then you couldn't remember how to fly. Like my wings don't flap, but then you come back around, and all remote viewers have cycles of contact. Like when I did the Maria Orsic target, man, that was give me a target right there because I was peaking. And then right after that, I had a fall off for a month or two. Like, yeah, not so good.
Yeah,
so it's just mysterious. The whole thing is so fabulous and mysterious and wondrous and challenging, and it will kick your ass. I mean, you feel like omniscient at one point, and then the next day you feel like I'm a failure.
Oh my gosh, and it's still happening
So
to you.
You've got to learn to just take the good and not feel, just know that it's not 100%. And that's why you want to do it with a team, and you want to have good friends that are doing it and keep in contact. If you do a great session, don't let your ego get too carried away. And if you do a bad session, just go, okay, that was, some days you ride the horse, some days the horse throws you. So.
Sorry, Dick, I just got two more questions. But so in your interviews, I remember you saying that it's about 40% accuracy. And I remember when on Ingo Swann, when he was doing it for the CIA or whatever, the U.S. Army,
Stanford research, yeah.
He said he can get it up to 60%, and that's when they really got interested in it, and they were like, okay, well, this technique, if you can get it to 60%. But then when you guys are talking about it and you were saying it's only like 30-40% accurate, I was like, well, but then how really good is it? But is it like 30%, like the 30% of the target you're getting, or is it only 30% of the time you actually get the target?
Yeah, well, there's different ways to measure that. You could say 30% of the time, did you get any data that is congruent to the target? Or do you consider that you got 30% of the available data? Or the way we judged it was what you look at every session and you look at, let me get a page. If I do a page and I say, okay, there's a man and I hear voices and there's smells of limestone and it's cool and it's a big artistic place. And then there's people in a passageway and there's feet shuffling. When we get feedback, we can say, okay, is there a place where there is a big picture of somebody on the wall? Is there a passageway that people walk through with? And you can look at each data point and check it off like, yeah, that's congruent to target. Yeah, that's good to target. I've had good sessions where 85% of my data was on. I regularly have sessions where 50% is off, 30 to 50% is off, but 10% of it is really good. Like,
yes,
10% is like stellar. And you want those moments where you really shine brightly. Like, I might do a session where I'm off for the first few pages, like, and then all of a sudden I get to a point where I hone in on the target, and then from then on, I'm totally on.
Because that's exactly what I thought you were saying, but but it could be taken the wrong way. When people say it's 30% accurate, like most of the time, I was thinking, well, statistically speaking, that's below chance, but it's actually 30% of the target. Like Lee got his target. He actually got 100%. He got the target because he got a bit of the Eiffel Tower, but he only got 5% of the Eiffel Tower. So that's actually that's what you guys were talking about. That's 5% accuracy is actually the piece of the target, not actually because like also when you were doing Farsight, all of your targets, I saw that as 100% accuracy. Like I mean, you drew those planes going into that building. The one of the pyramids, you guys drew the pyramids. You know that like to me that's 100% accuracy. You know.
Well, some of those Courtney edited, so I think there would be some material that was just deleted if it didn't add to the target. But Farsight we put a lot of time and effort into that. That was like, okay, if I'm going to do something for Farsight, I'm going to spend 3 weeks on it. You give me 3 weeks on a target. A normal remote viewing session is about 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and I'll produce 16, 17 pages. For Farsight, I would do 4 of those sessions and then go to whiteboard. And if I took it to whiteboard where I'm drawing on camera, he would say, session B, I want you to do whiteboard on that. I know that if he wanted a whiteboard, that something about that was good, so I'd follow it. But I've never really tried to quantify statistically the data. Like I've never looked. What I do is I do a session and I look for the highlights, the good parts, because the good parts are the good part. And every session is going to be a combination of good data, bad data, and contamination. So in your session, some of it is just going to be exactly describing the target. Some of it is going to be not describing the target at all, like off, like, if it's the Eiffel Tower, you might say, well, there's water, it's the bottom of the ocean, it's a submarine. And it's not. But then the next page, you could say, no, the water's over here and there's a big metal thing. And that's right. So, and then there's also contamination where you say, it's a small furry animal that runs fast and it's hairy and it's got claws, and you say it's a muskrat, but it's really a dog. So you misidentify something based on the data that you got. And that's why analysis is very important. There's a way to analytically look at remote viewing data from several viewers, and then you reduce it to what they're saying, the base level of consensus. But that's way complicated. That's high level.
Yeah, that's like when Russell Tark was doing that one exercise, and the lady said, I can't remember the whole story, but she's like, it's swimming pools. She sees swimming pools. It's a swimming pool thing. And he said, there we go. That's where you got it. You got it wrong. You immediately, your subjective mind has made it a description of it, because the target was like a fish farm. It was a fish farm. So obviously she overlaid her she imagined what she's like. She saw the data, but then her analytical mind got over it and made an assumption of it. And that's where it's wrong. It's like, you just got to give the data.
Viewers will misinterpret things. You can learn a viewer, like when they draw this, they really mean this. Like I can't think of an example, but like they say it's a trampoline, but it's an eardrum. That's a bad example, but it's.
Yeah, got the idea.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, just one last question, Dick, from me. But so has your intuition doing all of this, has that increased like tenfold? Is it like, how's your intuition just in day-to-day general life?
My intuition is good, and I'll tell you why. Because I've paid the price. I've paid the price through my hard work, my blood, sweat, and my dedication. That was my tuition. So I am in tuition. Tuition is paying for a faculty of learning. So my intuition is good because I have been in tuition paying through my hard work. That's kind of a word play, but remote viewing does increase your intuition, and I'll tell you why. Remote viewing is a structured way to establish a communication pathway. You sit down, and by implementing these protocols, looking on Blackboard, probing, querying about the target, you develop a communication pathway between your primary awareness and your subconscious. And once you open that up, it opens up, and it's always there. So yes, you get more moments where I play a game with my wife. She manages a restaurant. She'll come home from between 8 o'clock and 9:30. And sometimes on a good night, I'll just go stand by the door and she'll open it. There are 3 elevators in my building. I just play a game like it's going to be this one. So yeah, remote viewing opens a communication pathway to your subconscious. And the more you reinforce that, the more it naturally opens. Psychics do the same thing a remote viewer does, except they do it naturally. They already have that pathway open. So.
And sorry, Dick, it made me think of another question, and I promise this.
Hey, I'm having fun. Keep them coming. It's good. I'm enjoying it.
But have you gotten into any trouble with any of this remote viewing? Has anybody been like, okay, now that's enough? Like somebody mysterious men in black or something phoning you and going, maybe threatening you, like, okay, now just turn it off now. Like you've got too close. Can you even answer that?
I haven't gotten in trouble. But I did get contacted by someone that said, hey, that one target you did, that was really good. What you drew, we know where that is. And you drew it exactly. Oh, okay. Yeah. You should be careful with that. Like, as a matter of fact, let's talk. And so they said, you could channel that in a little better way and do some work. And I said, I don't know you. And they said, oh, okay, we'll talk a little later. And then it developed into a relationship. So that's how Future Forecasting Group got to be. No men in black, but it is an intelligence gathering tool. And I try to use it for, I've done a couple sessions where I was told don't publish those, and I didn't. So I've got a handful of things that somebody looked at and said, maybe you better not put that out. Just keep that to yourself. Me, I'm an old newscaster. I'm an old reporter. I want to learn something. I want to tell everybody right away. I want to come in and say, hey, look what I saw. But some things, maybe it's better. So, but no, I've never gotten in trouble. I've never.
And then do you find that, because I did a psychic course like with or astral travel course, and they said, and one of the rules was like, do not go spy on people, because if you go spy on people, it'll immediately shut off and you will not be able to remote view anymore, or not remote view, astral travel, whatever, astral travel anymore. So do you find that with the remote viewing, if you're spying on someone or whatever, does it diminish your ability to actually look at these things, or have you ever experienced that?
That's a really good question, and something we've been trying to investigate a little bit. If remote viewing is real, if you looked at the Eiffel Tower and brought back valid data about the Eiffel Tower, information had to move. You're in South Africa. How did you see the Eiffel Tower? Some information about that Eiffel Tower went from the Eiffel Tower to your brain. So information has to move. We have always thought that remote viewing was a passive endeavor, that is, you're just going and you're looking and bringing data back. We've been doing experiments looking at, can you go from the passive to the active? If you have some semblance of consciousness on target, can you affect the target? And that's a really good question. And we've yet to answer that, but we've done some interesting experiments on that. But usually when I remote view, it's like this flickering little, just small little event where I kind of see something. I don't interact with it. Like I'm not walking up to somebody and shaking their hand and going, interactive with it.
Because when I heard that and I got told that, I was like, I was wondering how true that was, because I was thinking, because immediately when they said that, I thought of you guys at the early days of Farsight, and I was like, yeah, but you guys, the
Well,
JFK assassination, I mean, you guys are spying on, like with the Twin Towers, like you guys, I mean, you went into like where they were making the plans, like you saw a team of people making a plan, but then there was that metal box, but you couldn't get in the box for some reason.
yeah, but to say that I would have any interactive response with that target, and there are remote viewers that claim, oh, I can remote influence. I can, go and the people see me. I don't believe that. I don't buy that. I don't, that would take such tremendous gain. You would have to be a superhuman, like almost a god, to exhibit that.
Mm.
And I don't claim to exhibit that. And I don't believe remote viewers who claim that.
Yeah, no, sure, but I was thinking, because you were there, like seeing that stuff, but your ability to see never diminished. Like because when the class I was in, they said no, if you spy on people or things, your ability to see will diminish, but yours seems like it's never diminished.
Yeah.
So that's why I was thinking,
So-
maybe that was a correction from
Yeah.
their part. Saying,
Keep in mind that those targets, like for Courtney, that are some of those videos, the Maria Orsic, the 9/11, and a couple of those are peak moments in my life. That's a performance that I did a couple, I really ramped up. Like, okay, I've got this project I'm doing for Courtney, and I lived and breathed it. And I, like, that day, that's all I did. Like, I just got ready for it, and okay, here I go. And I gave it every ounce of my intellect and ability. And for those moments, I shined and we captured it. I can't do that every day. I can't do that on every target. Like, I do it every week at Future Forecasting, and there are some where we go do a debrief, and I'm embarrassed. Like, okay, well, yeah, that's pretty good, but I don't want to represent that what you see at some of those Farsight videos or the Maria Orsic, that I can just turn that on like a switch and do that every day. Those are my best moments.
Mm.
Those
A
are
lot of work
like
that
you
goes
see
into
you
it.
see a U.S. baseball player hit 3 home runs in a World Series game. That doesn't mean he's going to hit 3 home runs every time. You could see him on a night where he grounds out and walks and strikes out.
Mm.
no, that's a great example.
I'm trying to be humble here.
Yeah,
but
yeah, 100%.
You're seeing the best moments, and that was 12 years ago. I mean, I didn't have gray hair. So.
But and also, Dick, you also mentioned that that you don't actually take projects and like you haven't made a career out of it. Like you don't be like, oh, I'm a because like I know 2 remote viewers here in South Africa, and they actually that's their living. Like they make a living out of it. They do like
Well, we
like-
actually do now make a living off it at Future Forecasting Group because, and I'll plug futureforecastinggroup.com. We have Daz Smith, Naeem Vendreas, myself, Daz Smith, Edward Reardon, 5 of us, and they're paid a nice salary thanks to the subscribers who subscribe to our work. And we do remote view professionally. So we do get paid. And we have to turn a product out every week. Like some days I don't feel like remote viewing, but I do it. I do it for pay, but I also do it. I mean, I don't have to do that. I don't need the money. So I do it more for my own
Passion.
fulfillment.
but
But yeah,
in
we
the-
do it professionally.
Okay, but I mean, what I meant was that, like, because you had this ability, somebody would be like, can you please just remote view this thing for me? Like, just say, like, a company came to you and said, we want this product, we want to see how this
Oh.
product's going to do. And you said you would never do that.
When they came to me, the guys that were putting together what it was originally called crypto viewing, now future forecasting, they said, Dick, you're a really good remote viewer. We could make a website and people would pay to see you do that every month. And I said, I don't know you. And my teacher told me never to get money involved in it. I've never remote viewed from, well, a little bit for Courtney Brown, but I said, if a company offered me $10,000 to do a viewing, I'd be afraid that I wouldn't give them their money's worth. So I shied away from it. I said, I don't know you. I don't want to do that. And they said, well, think about it. And so I thought about it and got to know them. And we tried it, Daz and I, as an experiment, and it worked out okay. But my teacher never accepted money, never told us, stay away from money. That'll screw it up. It won't be a good result. So he always advised me to not be involved with money.
Oh. Okay, cool. Sorry, were you going to say something?
Did you guys get up at 6 a.m. to talk to me? Is it 7 a.m., 7:30 there where you are?
Yeah, 7:30. Yeah, I was up at 5 this morning.
I want to thank you for accommodating me. I think you don't normally get up and do webcasts at 6 a.m. So
yeah.
No, and also what was funny because of we were up at 5 yesterday.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, that's not true.
Well, anyway, for the audience listening, we are exactly 12 hours apart. I'm in Honolulu, they're in South Africa. And to accommodate me, I did that once. I got to interview David Icke, and I had to get up at like 5:30 and interview him. And I was like, still sleepy-eyed, and like, David Icke is just tired. So thank you for getting up early on my behalf. I really appreciate that.
It's a pleasure as ours, seriously. And like I said earlier,
this has been a really nice conversation. I really enjoyed it. Well, I'll have to send you a little training stuff. Let's get the South African remote viewing team going.
Yeah,
oh my God, that would be absolutely amazing because I've been such a big fan of you for so many years. You'll see the intro to this later when we send it to you. And me and I was telling Lee, like, I look up to you, like, how people my age.
I'm humbled.
Yeah. Like the people my age look up to big soccer stars or like sports players or whatever. I'm like, you're like my role model. So
I'm honored, but you know what? I'm just a normal guy. I was a TV reporter, and I hope you found I'm exactly like who you thought I would be. I'm not pretentious. I'm my wife doesn't let me get too big of an ego.
But that's good.
My wife tells me, she says, Yobo, when the rice stalk is ripe and has the full of rice, it bows down. It's humble. She says, be humble. So I try to listen to her. She's good. And I met her, and I knew I'd marry her the moment I saw her. So.
Yeah, well, that's great. And again, thank you again from our side. Like I said earlier, thank you. Thank you so much.
Hey, we'll talk again.
Yes. Yeah. And we would love to do that course. I'd absolutely love, please, if we could do that. And then, and give you feedback and talk about, that'd be great.
You guys are prime candidates. I think you both would do very well. So, yeah. I'm going to be real busy for the next week or two because we've got a couple of projects. I'm trying to sell a property. If I don't answer you, if I don't follow up, just shoot me another email and remind me in a couple of weeks if I don't act on it right away. So I've really enjoyed talking with you guys.
Yeah, well, it's been fun. Fantastic talking to you too. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Dick. Thank you so much.
Send me a link when you get it up. We'll put it up on our future forecasting site with your permission if we can for our private.
Absolutely. That would be an honor. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic.
Have a great day. Thank you for getting up so early.
No, it's cool.
Time for me to have a glass of wine and kick back and play guitar. Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Bye-bye.
Right.
Thanks, Dick.
Thanks, Dick. Cheers, man.
Aloha.
That was cool, bud. We went on there for almost an hour and a half.
No, that was amazing. I really enjoyed that a lot. I mean, it's so cool that with our job we can talk to such amazing people.
He's a very humble guy as well. Yeah, I mean, he's, if you, for those people out there that are listening, if you go and look at all of his YouTube channels and all the stuff that he's been on, he's never changed. He's always been the same person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very
Not
down
exactly
to
as he said, it's not pretentious. It doesn't tend to be selling. He's not. And it's, he seems like a really decent guy. And nice. To be nice if you and I could actually, I know we did start it and we were sending each other stuff, which was actually pretty cool. We should have actually carried on with that.
Yeah, we can still do it, man. Just carry on.
It would be nice to, get involved with a group of guys, and who knows, maybe we could develop something here in South Africa that we could get going for them as well.
In the Hawaiian Guild of Remote Viewing to South Africa.
To be South African Guild. But yeah, I see the sun's popping up now. It's almost time for me to get to work.
Okay, well, geez, go make a living.
Yeah, but anyway, now I'll end it off there. Guys, again, we really enjoyed the session. I hope you guys did too. Again, William, thanks for your time as well this morning. And we'll chat to you guys next week. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, man.